This is Disclosure Now, a show where we expose the truths that are nefariously hidden from humanity. Today's subject of discussion is the World Economic Forum, a non-governmental organization that intends on creating a totalitarian new world order with dystopian policies that are implemented under the guise of protecting the environment. We examine this dangerous NGO and its connections to Joint Navy Space Fleet and the dystopian secret space program colony Centurion 5.
Okay, welcome to the show, everyone. So I don't know if you caught that or love the AI assistants there. Basically explaining, we're talking about the World Economic Forum today, which you've probably heard us mention the World Economic Forum dozens, if countless times on this show, but we haven't actually just done a full show breaking it down. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But I do want to remind people, as always, we got our physical meeting space in July. Just driving the point home. We have the website. It's linked in the description, and we'll have the ticker at the bottom of the screen. Basically, we still got the early bird tickets, and those are available for just a bit longer. So if people want to take advantage of that, please do. And yeah, without further ado, really, we're just going to go into this. We're going to try some different stuff this show. I have some clips that I should be able to play. Fingers crossed, with no technical difficulties, if none of those come into play. So one thing I really want to make clear to people is, like, this World Economic Forum, they don't have like all the power in the world, obviously, right? They're not winning per se, but I want to kind of show people a lot of their policies have to do with, like, they're very much so like alarmist about the environment. And I'm not saying, I know we do have to change the way we live in order to honor the earth. Like, that's huge. That's important. But what they do, like these Luciferians always try to do, is they invert that and they make it this Trojan horse to bring in a totalitarian agenda where none of the corporations or any of the people who are actually responsible for the environment problems that we see are held environment. And instead, it's all thrust upon us in the name of stopping climate change. That's kind of oversimplifying it, but in a nutshell, sort of what they're trying to, what a lot of the World Economic Forum's message is. And one of their messages is literally that we got to stop eating meat and stuff like that, which that's a whole debate. There are people out there in this community who might be vegetarian or whatever. That's a thing. But their solutions that they're coming out with are like literally, like the idea is to eat bugs. They think you should eat bugs. So like, this is, I'm not exaggerating, and this is already happening in real life. So what I want to do is just play a clip, and it's from this gentleman's YouTube. So we might skip through some of it a little bit and stuff, but just let me know in the audience if you're not hearing it. I've tried this before and it did work. I'm pretty sure I got it figured out now. I have to download the videos and then I can play them from my computer. I can't play something from like a browser. So I'm pretty sure this should work. Please let me know in the comments if there are any technical difficulties, but this is coming out of Canada. So this is seeing some of these policies actually implemented in real life. I don't know if you have anything to add to this before I play the video, Brian. You have anything to say?
Well, I mean, as we go with the show, everything is demonstrating the Luciferian transhumanist agenda that the other side's been trying to foist on us. Not just, in our faces with trying to get us to eat Z-bugs and we'll own nothing and be happy, but they've also been using time travel and the Montauk Project, or Montauk projects, including Project Phoenix, to alter the timeline in a negative way by removing positive people and positive technologies while strengthening the negative influences on our timeline. And so I know, Archie, from a full disclosure movement perspective, you may have also seen other timelines during your travels with the Montauk projects and secret space programs, where the World Economic Forum and World Health Organization types do carry the day. And I'd love to hear about that as well.
Yeah, so I can just kind of say that, like, I've seen Klaus Schwab out there in space. He's known. He's part of, from what I can understand, the World Economic Forum, the non-governmental organization, is like it's like the same thing. I'm gonna be like 100% upfront. Like, I don't remember what they call it or whatever, but I know for a fact that he's out there, and it's, from what I can see, the same exact organization. And this is why I really am trying to get people on the bandwagon with this and understanding this here, is just because, you know, I feel like most people are very much so aware of this, but I just want people to understand how serious this situation is. And I remember how they actually, I've talked about this, and look, I have to address somebody in the chat. Jason, before you said you supported Project Paperclip, you said Project Paperclip, I don't know what you said. I said they were Nazis. Project Paperclip was headed by Nazis. It's a Nazi project. These are the people that are responsible for the Montauk Project. So I've always respected you, and I've never had a problem with you in my chat until now. But if you're going to keep on bringing up this shit, I am going to kick you off my chat. I'm going to ban you from the chat. So please be respectful of the fact that they are responsible for the Montauk Project. They're the ones who brought over these scientists that were experimenting on people in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. They brought those same people here to experiment literally on me. So forgive me if I'm a little bit touchy about the subject and don't want people on my fucking channel supporting a literal Nazi operation where the Americans brought Nazis over to the United States and protected them. I'm not okay with that. If you want to fucking keep talking about it, I have no problem with banning you from my channel. And again, never had a problem with you until now, but if you keep on saying that stuff, I'm going to have a problem with you, and you're not welcome here. All right? And I'm sorry that I have to bring that up and address it, but it's like, come on, man. Like, yeah. Okay, anyway, we're going to bring up this video here. It's a video where, yeah, it shows that they actually opened up like a cricket farm, and that's tax subsidized in Canada, and the intention is to feed it to people. So let's play this video here.
This is a top sirloin cut. It cost $18 for 3 of them. A lot of chefs say that it's the most fun cut to cook. With the top sirloin, you can do a lot of things with sauces, with different spices, with different methods of cooking. And these, well, these are crickets. I'm not sure what the grading system is for crickets, but I'm gonna eyeball these and say they're AA. Now, one of these is a delicious meal for humans. The other is a delicious meal for other animals. Unless you're Justin Trudeau. Let me explain.
I'm Nicole Kidman, and I am going to eat bugs.
This video isn't actually about whether or not it's gross to eat bugs. This video is about government waste, not just on big things, but on things like this, subsidizing cricket production. Now, as the cost of living crisis keeps hurting Canadian families, a lot of people have had to cut back on their groceries. They literally swap out beef for chicken, or they eat less. Some parents are reporting that they're literally skipping meals just so that their children can eat.
The resurgence of scurvy in Canada is raising concerns of broader issues related to growing food insecurity and the rise in cost of groceries.
But there's one thing you can't cut back on. You can't choose to send the government less of your tax dollar. If they determine you owe them something, they will collect it. They will take it right off your paycheck. They will send collections agencies after you. One day, they will send the police to arrest you to force you to pay your taxes. So the least we can expect is that the government would treat your tax dollars with respect and only spend it on things that are absolutely necessary. Now, Justin Trudeau wastes a lot of your money, and it adds up to big bucks, like the Canada Infrastructure Bank. $35 billion, it's been around for about 8 years, hasn't completed a single project. Or there's the $250 million that Justin Trudeau sent to the Asian Infrastructure Bank to build pipelines and roads and bridges in other countries. Or the Housing Accelerator Fund. This is a multi-billion-dollar fund that goes to pay big city bureaucrats to build fewer homes. But there are also a lot of smaller items that might not seem as big when you compare them to billions of dollars, but to you and me, 100,000 here, $1 million there, pretty soon it all adds up too. This brings me to the dozens of dinner guests I have this evening. You see, Justin Trudeau thought that the way to respond to higher grocery prices was to give your money, $9 million, in the form of a grant to a cricket farm. These are crickets for human consumption. He took $9 million of Canadian taxpayers' money to subsidize a private company to build a massive, in fact, the world's largest cricket farm. Now you might ask yourself, why on earth would Justin Trudeau fund a cricket farm? Well, you see, this is part of the Liberals' wacko environmental agenda. Because they're not just talking about making cars more efficient or greening the electrical grid by finding cleaner ways of producing electricity. What they're talking about is making this more expensive and making you eat this. That's what their press release said. It said the subsidy would, quote, produce high volumes of nutritious food with a low environmental footprint and meet global demand for food by using less water, energy, and space. So just put that side by side. On the one hand, Justin Trudeau is imposing a fertilizer cap on Canadian farmers so they can produce less food. He's imposing a carbon tax that literally makes every aspect of food
I can hear you and the audio
more expensive. And if you think about it, Justin Trudeau is taxing this to subsidize that. Not only do you have to pay higher beef prices when you do want to treat your family, but you have to know that part of your
I can't
tax
hear you
is
over
going
the video.
to grow these little guys.
Oh, okay. Let me.
This is part of their wacko agenda. They couldn't tax Canadians to hitting their own climate performance targets, so now they're going to subsidize cricket production and bully us into eating them.
Here. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so basically what I was going to say is, like, I know that it might seem like kind of like, it seems like such a wackadoodle thing when people talk about it. When you see it, the memes and the things, like, they're trying to feed people crickets, like, and I feel like people kind of aren't taking it seriously. And I've even heard the argument from people, well, in some cultures it's okay to eat bugs, and like it's like racist or something to not want to eat bugs. Like, I've literally heard that.
That's a gaslighting. That's a gaslighting.
It's a gaslighting.
What are you, a racist?
Yeah.
What, you don't want to eat my centipede?
I'm all for it. Like, if you, like, I see it, like, people like going over to different places, and that's a thing. People will try bugs, and it's a kind of a culture shock, and that's a whole nother thing. When you're checking out a culture where that's normal for them, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about trying to enforce something that is not a part of our culture, not something that anyone's interested in. I mean, think about a lot of these people who are, like, really even into the, like, environmental agenda, like, that are on maybe, like, the better, less, like, nefarious side of it, because it's an important thing. The environment is important. A lot of these people do not want to eat bugs. They don't want to. They want a cleaner environment. They want maybe like a more local chain of production, like stuff like that. A lot of those things would be great, but instead, and they've pushed these really weird wackadoodle solutions on us, and it's not because they're great ideas, because they're so cheap or whatever. $9 million is not cheap. It's because they want to use food to control people, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is. Search for. They have other names for it too. Kelly Hughes in the audience. They're already putting it in the food. Search for our cheddar powder. So they're already putting it in the food. Some of them will say, have a shellfish warning, allergy warning on them, because technically they're in that category. So if you have a shellfish allergies, the crickets could act it up. So if you see shellfish allergies, it's another thing to look out for. Although they're not properly labeling that yet, which could kill people. So that's one of those things.
The proteins in the exoskeletons. Now, Arki, can you tell us about some of these? Now, so there's, on the one hand, there's parallel Earths, parallel timelines where these loser variants have succeeded in putting this in, and then they also have breakaway colonies in the here and now in this timeline.
Yeah,
where they're putting in these policies.
I'll
Can
be
you
100%.
describe those?
I'll be 100% upfront with you with all the fuckery that they do with me. From what I can tell, Centurion 5, which is Aurelia, I've been trying to do the better judgment of calling it Aurelia because that's what the natives called it. You know what I mean? So that would technically, to me, be the real name. But Aurelia, as known as Centurion 5 to many, I'm not
because
sure.
real quick, because what happens, just for our audience, Arkeem, the U.S. or based or whatever might be under the bad German space programs, the breakaways. What they'll do is they will literally take over other planets. But instead of calling the planets by what the natives would tend to call their own planet, The space programs call these planets Centuriona 1, Centuriona 2, Centuriona 3.
Well, it's just Centurion, no Centuriano.
Oh, sorry, Centurion, and that's a reference, I guess, to like the Roman Empire. The idea of these, it's like the militarization of turning these into like legionized outposts. Which, you know, so when you see the film Avatar,
100%.
there's disclosure there, which is wild to me still. But so please, Arkeem.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, I understand that there are people out there who like, I believe in like making dietary choices and doing things in your life if that's what you believe in, and that's great. But they're forcing people to eat crickets, and they're not doing it because they care about you or the environment or anything. They're doing it because what I saw on Aurelia was I had like an alter that was just a construction worker and a miner, and he didn't get paid very much money, so food was a huge luxury. And so what he would spend, and he was looked down upon for it. He didn't save any money a lot of times because of it. But when he would get paid at the end of the week or every 2 weeks or whatever it was, he would go down to this market, which there's a farmer's market, and they had a lot of stuff. It was heavily controlled where you could go. They had, what are they called, districts. So you couldn't go to this district, but at a certain time during the week, they had the farmer's market there. So it was like more open and more people could go there, right? And I would go there and get Italian bread, French bread, same difference, you know, some salami and some mozzarella and like olive oil, I think it was, or whatever. And I'd make these sandwiches. And I remember that it would take up a huge amount of my check. And the reason why I could afford salami is because it's like a sausage and it was like a cheaper meat. And meat was actually literally turned into, instead of it being like, oh, like we're going to phase out meat big time and people are going to eat it less. No, that's not what happens. It just turns into a status symbol. Like it literally becomes like a status symbol where like eating meat is like, it shows your affluence. It shows how wealthy you are. And it's like people being able to keep food inside their refrigerators, like that's seen as like a sign of affluence because they have this cricket powder. It literally is a cricket powder. It's like a cricket flour powder that you mix with water and it fluffs up. And they kind of showed it in Star Wars, the same thing. Like
where they add water and they stir it and like fizzes a little bit, and then it like brings like this
bread,
Soylent Green bread.
Yeah, that's real. That was it would get delivered to your house, and I remember like people would end up a lot of times having jars and jars full of it because everybody preferred to eat real food, but it was like this claim in their society where like, okay, there could be people living in complete fucking, they have nothing basically, right? But they got clean water, they got this cricket paste shit they can eat, and by all technical standards, their needs are taken care of. So they're living the dream according to these World Economic Forum people. You know, they're living the good life because all their needs are met. You will own nothing and be happy, right? Like that's.
Now, Arky, you got Abigail here. She's a regular viewer with us, and she's confirming what your recall here. She's saying, I remember a life on a breakaway planet with my biological father, Thomas. He was mad because I bought a packet of cricket powder home, or brought a packet of cricket powder home. He said, we're rich. We have money for meat. Do not bring this into our home again.
And also, I'm supposed to talk to you, Abigail. I forgot to call you. I think I was supposed to call you today, and I forgot. Because I talked to her like 4 a.m, and then I fell back asleep. I'll talk to you soon. I was supposed to talk to her. I forgot about it. I'm a space case sometimes. I got a calendar. If I don't write it down on my calendar, I forget about it.
And please reach out to me too, Abigail, on Facebook if you can.
But yeah, so I just want to let people know, like, this is one of the really big points I want to make to people is don't let these these weird fascist guys like make you think that we shouldn't care about the environment and change. Like, a lot of things do need to change, but all the solutions that they are presenting are just designed to enslave people. If we really, if our government really cared about all these issues and really wanted to help, they would make it easier for people to grow their own food. They would have food banks for people that it's like a food community gardens and things like. They would encourage us to do these things on our own, make it easier for us to do these things on our own, stuff like that. That's things like that is would help a lot more than making people eat cricket powder. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like there's ways that's like such a weird.
Well, Archie, they're using it to disempower us, and right, they're using supposed the idea of being environmentally friendly, of course, to disempower us every step of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And even what you were mentioning earlier on this breakaway here, not only, it's like you had these districts, it's like these 15-minute smart cities where they want to monitor and really proctor your coming and going. And what if you were caught? Like, how did you travel around? Like, do you have like a bracelet? Is there an implant? How do they know where you're supposed to be and when?
So
and then what do they do if you're not? Yeah.
This is part of the reason, Brian, why I was giving those kind of soft warnings about the border situation and stuff, is we have this freedom of movement here, but what I remember is sort of a papers, please kind of situation on this planet, where you really had to have permission to get places. And like, I actually smoked cannabis on this world and it was illegal. And I remember that a guy would deal, it was a Hmong guy. I was right by the Hmong district. I remember that. There was actually a district that was Hmong, which, for people who aren't aware, Laos, Vietnam region, they helped us in the war, and a lot of them ended up moving over to the United States after that. And there's actually this whole thing called Operation Baby Lift, where they brought a bunch of babies over here. And I think there's a lot of weird stuff going on there, where they realized that the Hmong people had abilities and stuff. And what I'm getting at is a lot of Hmong people are in the secret space programs, is because I remember individuals from Appleton, Wisconsin, that Hmong individuals that I knew that I would run into, either friends or people that I worked at the school I worked at or whatever. I remember seeing them there. And but anyway, one of the things
Archie, in the wake of the Vietnam War, many Hmong people were relocated to the U.S. Many ended up also in the San Francisco, Oakland area.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard reports from other people in the paranormal ET UFO researcher community talk about how during the Vietnam War, it's possible that many of our troops were being brought to, other planets to fight wars against a local population that they didn't even realize, they weren't really in Vietnam or Laos and Cambodia. They were somewhere else, but they were carrying out military operations. And so what you're saying about the Hmong being relocated to Aurelia or Centurion 5, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's some historical overlap.
They've got the secret space program phenomenon going on, where they also have their regular lives on Earth. Because I would see these people, and for a while I remember, because I had a guy who would deliver cannabis to me, and I remember eventually I started growing my own cannabis, but obviously I had to get the seeds from somewhere, right? And I remember the guy that delivered to me, I was like, how the hell did he do it? And I remember how now. He was a flower delivery guy. So like, if you wanted to deliver flowers to your girlfriend, that was his real job. But he had these like special flowers that were, you paid extra for them, and it was supposed to be for like suit kind of guys, and to impress their lady that they paid more or whatever. It was like a golden rose or something like that. I can't remember what it was. And the guy would know, he'd be able to tell whether you actually gave a shit about the rose or not, or whether he could just give you a regular rose with a little baggie stuffed in it. So that's how they got around. It was all digital, the money. There was no cash. So that's how he was able to sell. And he had a special permit where he could go through to districts that he wouldn't live in, because he was a delivery guy. He had a special permit. So that's why he was able to go around and do that. And what I'm also getting at here is, just because it was like a very totalitarian planet doesn't mean that there wasn't criminal activity and drug trades and all that stuff. In fact, the irony is, like, criminal activity thrives in those environments.
Black market situation.
Yeah, exactly, because it becomes everything that it becomes worth so much more. So the higher risk is high reward. So that's why.
Now, Archie, we all want to know, at least not me, of course, just everyone in the audience, how was the marijuana on Centurion? off the black market mug delivery guy.
It was good. From what I recall, it was a really mountainous planet, and as you know, some of the best cannabis is grown either in Humboldt County in the mountains of Humboldt, or Afghanistan, the mountains of Afghanistan. Some of the best cannabis is grown out there. So I remember it being really good. Yeah, I remember it not being like brick weed like I used to see back in the day. It was good
Mexicali,
stuff.
swaggy swag.
It was good stuff like you see now, and it is kind of mind blowing to think of too. And I think it was kind of like how it is now. It was like illegal, but you could get in trouble for it. But I think it was a bit more illegal in their world than it is here. I think it'd be like cocaine here or something. Like it was not. You had to do it pretty on the down.
What if they caught you? First of all, what if they caught you, and then what if they caught Mr. Special Flower delivery guy?
You'd go to jail, and he'd go to jail. Go to jail. They had jail there, and you'd sit in jail for a while, probably, just like you would here in like the 90s or the 80s or whatever if you got caught with it.
Because that's like the level of development, also, because in terms of societal development,
they have pretty advanced technology, except most of it is that it's pretty out in the open, but it's mostly all military, and they know that. And it's kind of like one of those things where the military controls their planet, and it's more done out in the open than it is here. And they're fed the whole thing that like Earth is gone, and I remember that Ryan Sterling knew the whole secret that Earth really wasn't gone, but So that's
now Ryan Sterling is an alter of yours.
Yeah, so there's Ryan Sterling, and Ryan Sterling is like a time cop, and he was doing like kind of Montauk type stuff there, being a time soldier kind of thing on Centurion 5. And then I got Marshall Howard, and Marshall Howard is another alter that lived on Aurelia, Centurion 5, who he worked a mining job, and he worked a construction job, and just kind of any old job you could get, but a lot of physical labor jobs. And I just remember how hard it was for him, how much he struggled. Even like the buying the weed that was so expensive, but that's why when he could figure out how to grow it on his own, he grew it on his own, and he just grew it for himself. And I remember he had cats too. I just remember that like it was a kind of a hard place to live. Like I guess I kind of exaggerated in my Facebook posts. Like it might have happened where people would literally beat each other to death over like a cheeseburger or steak. Like I'm sure people did die, but it was more like they would beat each other fucking bloody over a steak or a cheeseburger or something like that. And I remember being like in the military, and the thing with Centurion and a lot of these breakaway planets is what it is life on the surface and life in society is very hard. And they try to make it look like even though the military is hard because of all the privileges you get, like for instance, real food. They feed you real food in the military on Centurion, on Aurelia, right? If you join the military, they're not feeding you cricket paste. They might feed you it in certain situations, but it's a motivator. It's one of the ways that they get people to join the military and stay in the military. They feed them good. So that's like, and that's what I'm getting at with like
control. It's a control system.
It's a control system. You know what I mean? It's just like how here they provide college or like all these other things for really poor people. They do the same thing here, just not as blatantly out in the open, or like maybe a little less morally wrong. But it's still kind of the same idea, you know what I mean? Like,
well, Arky, do you get like the Starship Troopers type propaganda, like "Welcome to the colonies"? Help make humanity thrive amongst the stars. Like, eat your cricket powder.
Young. The song "Forever Young." I've actually seen commercials that advertise joining the military, and they use the song "Forever Young," which is by John Whitberg, by the way. He wrote.
Is that the Alphaville song? Forever Young.
Yeah. And that song is literally an advertisement for the military and saying you can live forever, you can be in the stars and live forever, because they do keep you alive indefinitely until they lose you in combat or you die in a way where they can't recover you, which is pretty uncommon. It does happen, but overall, it's more common that like you get to live a lot longer, and you get to live a life of privilege, and like as compared to the nonces, the regulars who don't work for the military. So it's a hard world because of that. And honestly, like a lot of these planets, pretty much everything is owned by the military. Even stuff that isn't technically military, it kind of is. They kind of own everything.
Well, the colony wouldn't be there if it wasn't for that militarized presence, right?
Exactly, it's a colony, and it was created for military purposes. So, yeah. Oh, I have. It says virtual temple complex. I got the wrong banner up. Jeez, we're at disclosure now. Now that's tomorrow. Sorry, guys. Same difference. Whatever. I can't believe I had the wrong banner up for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, or longer than that. 30 minutes. That's okay.
That's right. Sister show.
Everybody knows what show this is. Yeah, I want to show another thing. So something that's hilarious to me is they have you own nothing and you'll be happy. This is a very short video. I'm just gonna play it. Okay. And I want people to see this. This was literally on their website and on their YouTube, and it was so blatant and out in the open. They deleted it off their YouTube. But of course, the great internet, nothing actually ever dies on the internet, so I was able to download it. And yeah, just desktop. Hold on here. 1 second here. Where is it? Here it is. Okay.
I'm going to sip my mango lassi while we watch this. Oh my gosh. For the good of the environment.
Mm-hmm. And then you see how great of a job they're doing right now. They're doing such a great job with that.
And the climate change I translate to weather warfare.
Yeah. Cash.
Go to Mars. We are on Mars, people, and it's not pretty. Keep you alive, healthy in space. Cricket powder. Gosh, all the double speak in one video.
Yeah, and I want to show you something interesting too now, guys. Is here's a video of oh wait, no, is this the right one? Hold on, sorry. So basically, I found a video of Trump talking at the World Economic Forum, and he says some pretty interesting things. So I'm gonna try to find that. And
while you're finding that, Arkeem, you're also talking about how in there was one thing that Edward Hughes from who's an alter soul fragment of yours from a more positive Earth timeline, Earth 2028, where the Vatican was wiped out early on, and I guess Tartaria never got wiped out and got to stay.
It is different. Yeah, like I'm not with Edward now, so I can't remember exactly, right. But yeah, it was the Catholic Church. Yeah, it did not develop into what it was because that was very much so. Yeah, it got stamped out of history. They got rid of it.
And one of the things he said about that Edward, or one of the things that Edward himself said that he kind of admired about this timeline, where he didn't think he admired it, but he thought it was actually a positive thing, was that the fact that our cars, a lot of them were still gas, and that enabled us to avoid a lot of the lockdowns because we're not at the point yet where they could just electronically shut down our electric cars. Okay. And so could you speak to that and how that's yet another control mechanism?
So, if you live on a planet where you're not being run by Luciferians, as you call them, and you got public transit, then that's great. That's not a problem, and that's great for everyone, and you don't have to worry about it being used against people. But in the situation that we saw in 2020, they would have just shut that shit down. They did. They did shut down public transit. And what we saw is I mean, with the truckers and a lot of different other things, it was kind of this irony that they use these vehicles for loosh farming, and they do a lot of they basically use it to finance themselves, get financial energy and things like that.
And
But
trafficking.
the vehicles, like just vehicles in general, like they use that, but like they did not take into account the fact that, well, yeah, you can just turn this thing on and go anywhere. And the thing is that they got these electric cars now, so like a lot of these electric cars, they can just turn off remotely. So that's something that people got to worry about, and that's why it's good to have a car that doesn't have one of these computers that's connected to the internet, and it is because they can literally just turn your car off remotely. So that's why they're trying to push the electric cars so heavy and stuff like that, which I'm not saying that they're a bad thing. It's one of those things though where when they have that power over your car where they can just turn it off remotely, like they shouldn't have that kind of power, and it's kind of scary to think about. But I found this video earlier, and I wanted to show it because I was like, what's this guy gonna say what's Trump gonna say at the Economic Forum? But I gotta give him credit. He basically, I didn't read the whole thing, but he called them out. I'm just gonna show a little. I don't have to show the whole thing, but he says basically flat out that they're alarmists who want to use fear to control people, and he says that we can't allow them to do that right to their faces. So I want to just show that real quick because that actually happened. And I expected to be like find him like supporting it, but no, he called him out. So I think it's worth showing because where is, I think this is the right one.
I spoke at this companies. Family agenda demonstrates how a nation can thrive when its communities, its companies, its government, and its people work together for the good of the whole.
I think that's the wrong one. I got two of them. 1 second. That's a shorter one. Here it is.
And their optimism, fear, and doubt is not a good thought process, because this is a time for tremendous hope and joy and optimism and action. But to embrace the possibilities of tomorrow, we must reject the perennial prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse. They are the heirs of yesterday's foolish fortune tellers, and I have them, and you have them, and we all have them. And they want to see us do badly, but we don't let that happen. They predicted an overpopulation crisis in the 1960s, mass starvation in the 70s, and an end of oil in the 1990s. These alarmists always demand the same thing: absolute power to dominate, transform, and control every aspect of our lives. We will never let radical socialists destroy our economy, wreck our country, or eradicate our liberty.
Wow, he said F you to their faces. That's
yeah, like,
cool.
and everybody who watches this channel knows I'm the most critical person of Trump, but when he said that, I'm going to give credit where it's due. He told them, like, your policy is what you want to do. Like, you're trying to scare people into thinking that the apocalypse is coming.
And Archie, look at Abigail's recent comment right here. Again, I have talked with Trump at the Area 51 base, and he seems like he wants the best for Earth. Just my opinion. My spirit guide, Victor, says you can't trust any politician.
Yeah, it's a confusing thing, like I've seen him places where it seemed like the energy was good, and then other people have seen him places that where bad shit was happening. I have been places and I've participated in evil shit. So who am I to judge anybody? I don't know, but I just figured it was worth pointing out because he's not the only person who's literally went there and called them out. There was another guy, and I couldn't find the video. I've watched this video before, and I was trying to find it, and I couldn't find it. But basically, they invited a scientist, or no, it wasn't a scientist. It was a historian, to come on their little World Economic Forum panel. And forgive me, everyone, for not having this video so I can just pull it up. And I don't remember the guy's name either, which makes it even worse. But that's part of the reason why I couldn't find the video. But this guy, he was a historian, and he came right up there, and he's like, yeah, it's kind of he literally is like, it's kind of funny being here because you guys are all just totally beating around the bush and just like coming up with all these solutions where they're great for you because you don't have to take any responsibility for what the actions that you play a part in this, and you place all the responsibility on everybody else. And he straight up says, like, if you guys actually cared about these problems, you would actually put your money towards it. You would and people can disagree on this, or but he basically called them out that historically, the times when the government was able to tackle issues like this, or when we did it best historically, is when these corporations were taxed. And these same people that are basically saying basically these corporations, what they're doing is, instead of just playing their part, paying their taxes or whatever, which I know that's a whole argument. A lot of people don't think anybody should pay taxes, but we pay taxes and then multi-billion-dollar corporations don't. That makes no sense, regardless of how people feel about taxes. And
well, Arky, along this theme of the super haves versus all the rest of us plebe have-nots, can you speak? You were mentioning how, for example, Klaus Anal Schwab, up there, how he has that one robe that he wears at like the World Economic Forum.
He looks like he forgot to be. He looks like he forgot he was on Earth, man.
Because up there in space, you said they actually do
dress like that. Like for instance, when I saw Jesse Ventura, that was kind of the vibe with the outfit he was wearing. Like, it didn't look just like that, but that was kind of the vibe, like that kind of fashion, that kind of style. That's a normal thing out there. It's not a normal thing here. It's like, bro, realize where you're at, guy. Like, you look like Darth Vader. You know what I mean? Like, not trying to.
So how would a guy like Schwab live up there in the breakaways as one of the so-called elites? Like, if the rest of us are eating cricket paste, what are they eating? What does that like look like?
Well, that's exactly what I said. They eat steak. They eat whatever they eat really great meals, and they rub it in everybody's faces. Like the elite is the elite is like the higher, the higher ups are in their society is mostly military. And so, yeah, food is a status symbol. I've also seen on other planets, while we're on the subject, not that it necessarily has to do with the World Economic Forum, but I've seen other planets where water is a status symbol. Where walking around and drinking water, that's like, you're the shit if you're walking around with a glass of water. We'll have parties where people drink water, dude. Like, and it's a huge thing because water is such a valuable resource.
It's kind of like the Expanse or whatever, where they're taking the showers, and their showers, like, they got the ration. There's like this little timer.
Like Sonic. There's planets where the water is rationed to the point where you have to take sonic showers instead of water showers because, like if you got access to water, everybody wants to take a hot shower. Whether, like, even though that technology exists and it's like people think like that'd be great, like, nah, nothing beats a hot shower, and even 1,000 years into the future or whatever, you know what I mean? A sonic shower is not as nice. But on some of these planets where they have less water and it's more of a valuable resource, because it's like some of it, they're in the core of a planet, and their water is literally from melted glaciers and stuff. And so, you know what I mean? Like, they have to, okay, well, this is kind of an interesting thing that this person said, and I don't know what this means, but someone says, Trump is not a politician. There are multiple ones. Trump's being clones and stuff, maybe. And he speaks to 3 different audiences, so you must decode or read between the lines. I've heard stuff like that. I don't know whether it's true or not.
Well, for example, there's Trump is supposed to be like 6'2", or he's pretty tall, but then there's like, and so when he walks by his son Barron, they're kind of more even, although Barron's pretty darn tall. But then there's his one body double who's like 5'9". And so then when he walks next to Barron Trump, there's like the difference.
Yeah, I think one thing too is people
obvious.
Like, trip up over one thing that I think people don't get with the body doubles and the clones and stuff that I want to bring up, because sometimes people, it flies over the head. They don't even think about this. Sometimes it's literally just really wealthy, famous people that maybe they don't always want to be doing all these press things and taking pictures and da-da-da-da. And so they literally hire a lookalike to do certain things for them so they can hang out and not have to do all that stuff. And that's where a lot of that phenomenon comes from. And there's actually celebrities that have openly come out and been like, yeah, this is my body double or whatever.
Will Smith.
Yeah, so it's like sometimes it's weird stuff going on and it's clones and it's whatever. And sometimes it's just them not wanting to be in the limelight all the time and needing a break every once in a while because they're expected to be in a million places at once, basically, some of these people. You know what I mean? So it's like, you got to take a break sometimes. So yeah, like for instance, like I don't know. I think maybe even you said Will Smith. I can't remember who else it was who came out about that. But yeah, people have actually publicly come out about it. So
And then all the Eminem stuff. That's
Eminem, the cat is saying something about the Beatles. Yeah, okay, it's publicly known that they did. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, and then what else did I have in these
There's
videos?
Abigail saying there's a drink called Fizz. It has nanites. It tastes like a lighter version of Dr. Pepper. So, any is that ringing a bell? You mentioned some foods that you like on the breakaways, Arkeem.
One thing I remember is there when I don't remember that much food that's different from here, but I do remember one thing. I remember how I told you I did the thing that Jessica Jones did the remote view of me on, where I was on a ship that was coming from another reality that was bringing me home or whatever. After doing a bunch of missions in different realities, which she confirmed with her remote viewing, and it was a blind target, you guys. So I didn't even know that's what happened. She figured that out for me. I was trying to use her as a tool to sort of remember. But
So Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress, or Jessica the Cryptid
yeah,
Huntress.
she remote
Please
viewed
check
me.
out her show on
Yeah, check her.
YouTube.
She's the
We're on
best,
there
man.
regularly as
Yeah,
co-contributors.
she's the best. But I remember that there was some sort of dessert treat that I was in line at a vending machine, which was basically like a replicator, I think. And I was hoping that it would have this certain treat I wanted, and I don't know how to explain it other than it was like a coffee. It was like a cake, and it had kind of like a coffee flavor, vanilla. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like, yeah, it's like cake that like they don't really have on Earth. I've never found it anywhere on Earth ever before, and that's what I wanted because they don't have it here, and I hadn't had it, and I was like, yes, they got it. So I remember that, and that was me being really excited about eating this certain thing that I wanted, and then of course I brought up the I liked eating the salami sandwiches, which is like I think that's like a common thing here because
So Arkeem, I have to ask, that salami sandwich, right? Is that
yeah.
like salami that was imported from Earth through some kind of
No,
portal, or
they've
they
got
have their own?
farms. They
Okay.
have farms and they have cows and they have cattle and all that
I mean,
stuff.
it's almost like the imagery I get when I listen to your descriptions of like Centurion or Aurelia, and the human
It's
presence on there.
tropical. It's a
Yeah,
tropical planet.
it almost feels like the U.S. like taking over like Venezuela or something, or Ecuador, and then you've got the military, and they're living large on the land, and then they've got all the guns, and then you've got everyone else like farming and running the local economy who's just like downtrodden, and it's kind of like I get images of like Elysium, like the wealthy people live like you see in the movie Elysium, with like the med beds in their own living room, and then everyone else, it's like they're living in the barrio slums or something.
Yeah, it's sort of like that. And I remember that even I'm pretty sure there were like worker revolts and stuff like that, but they never got very far and stuff. And
Didn't you tell at one planet where there's a timeline where you helped inspire a worker revolt, or not that just a THX one, but there's other. I mean, other people have talked about this too. Just
I don't
disrupting.
remember ever bringing that up, but I could say like I inspired the people to be less specious towards the Aurelians, meaning the guys that look like Admiral Akbar, the natives of the planet. I ended up being a chef at a restaurant. That yeah, and that ended up changing people's long.
Because no one liked their food, right? They're like
Yeah,
humans didn't like their food.
so basically, no one could afford human food. These workers, they couldn't afford human food when they got off their shifts. And this Aurelian guy had an idea. Well, what if I tried to make human food, make a bunch of money off them, but like just like cheaper, cheaper stuff that they can actually maybe afford. And their food's way different than us. They'll eat grubs and stuff, for instance. There's a little bit of a crossover. Our taste buds are very different, but there's certain foods that both Illyrians and humans kind of like. So there's over. It's like kind of like the two circles, right? It's like
The Venn
yeah,
diagram.
the Venn
Because
diagram.
this was like also tropical with a lot of water, and you said the Admiral Akbar people, they're like very water world
Well, they
type.
lived in swampy areas.
Okay,
Yeah, so they like living near like swamps and water, and they look like fish people for a reason. They're always near water. Um,
and then it's like their food, like maybe they've got like certain fish type foods or
yeah,
alligator that
everyone
humans
ate
would like as well.
certain meats. Um, yeah. But the thing that we don't like, which some humans would be daring and try it, was like they like gawk basically, like worms, like live worms that are like spiced and stuff like that. Yeah, that was something that they'd eat. And then there's a more human version where they would actually cook it, but it's like the same thing though. They like to eat them live though. But
This is like Star Wars. This is like super sounds like Star Wars, like something like walking around the cantina,
no, they
and you
live on a
got the
planet.
human. Yeah,
They live on a planet called Centurion 5. If you're asking me in the audience, Kira, they're Centurion 5, and I'm not sure if this is in this reality or not. I think it's in this reality. That's one of the things I want to bring up, is they do that to confuse us on purpose. Like they kind of don't always brief you on what reality you're in. That you're It's kind of don't ask, don't tell
you
kind of
could be
thing.
in a parallel reality,
Yeah, but
and
I'm
then
pretty sure it was here, and I feel like even if it wasn't here, like it's the same thing's probably going on here.
I'm wondering if like this like Kepler 242, they talk about these exoplanets that are very Earth-like that are being discovered. I'm wondering if like Centurion 5 is like that one. That might be one of the the planets, and they're just soft disclosing it and
Who
acting like it's
knows?
some far away planet that we discovered it. Oh, by the way, like we're actually doing Avatar there.
Yeah, that could be true.
Now,
Let them
now,
live, please. Yeah, thank you.
oh,
Uh,
thank you, Jordan.
yeah.
Now you mentioned argument. That scenario or that recall that you mentioned is fascinating to me because what you said was you befriended this one Admiral Akbar guy, and you literally worked with him to like start your own restaurant that like overcame a lot
So
of
no,
the.
here's what it is: he already had the restaurant, and it wasn't greatly successful. And so I was a
Was he
street
trying to
food.
feed humans as well as
Yeah,
like the
he was trying. That's what he was trying to do. He's already trying to do that with not very good luck,
because
and
he didn't have the same taste
he
buds?
doesn't have the same taste buds. So, and I went in there one day as a kid, and dude, I just wanted real food, and I told them I wanted real food, and I would work for a meal, which most of the kids just beg for food, but I said I would work, and so I did that, and so what it turned into is I would go in there once a day, do the dishes, and eat a meal, and that was my one actual meal that I could depend on every day. And when I got a bit older, one day when I was gonna leave, because I would leave, I think right after the lunch rush is when I would leave. After I would do the dishes for the lunch rush, so he told me to stay, and he told me to help with prep for the dinner. And he's like, "You've watched this guy do this like a million times. Do I need to tell you how to do anything?" I was like, "No." And he's like, "Good. That's why you're hired now. I don't have to teach you anything. I don't like teaching people stuff. You know how to do everything already. I don't need to tell you anything." And so I really wasn't. Yeah, like I really was just thrown right into it, and it turned into eventually him becoming like a father figure to me because I was an orphan. So I was born in, I don't know what the hell happened to my parents. I grew up in an orphanage, and I got kicked out of the orphanage or whatever at the age of 8 or something like that because it was full and it was really hard. They'd kick the kids out for disobeying or whatever. It was so full, and I remember that I lived on the streets, and yeah, this guy took me in, and he would let me sleep in the dining room. Once I started working there, he let me sleep in the dining room, and eventually I was able to get my own apartment or whatever. But it turned into um, these no. It was still just like the poor workers would come in and they would, "Hey, I really appreciate the super sticker,
Thank you,
guys."
Lily.
But it would turn into people coming in there like the workers, like the food started to get a buzz, but it was still there was this social divide where people couldn't really eat there without it being a taboo thing. But then there are these two wealthy rich ladies who or I just eccentric rich ladies, excuse me, I just use it to it's two words over again, basically. But yeah, they were like allowed to do weird things because they're these eccentric rich ladies, and they came to the restaurant, and it changed everything. The fact that they ate there,
and they really liked the food too, right?
Oh, they loved it. They loved
now,
it.
what was it about the food? Like, how did you
The spices,
merge that?
putting the right spices on it, making it taste right, really. And then yeah, we did use meats and stuff like that. And I can't remember how. I feel like there was native animals to that planet, and we used their meat and actually made it like taste good. And that's how I think we were able to afford feeding people, because it wasn't cow, it wasn't pork, it wasn't. Well, I do think we had that stuff, but it was a little more pricey. And but yeah, it was affordable. And I remember eventually it turned into an upscale restaurant where it wasn't affordable, which is kind of funny. It ended up being, it's not like a thing where Olarian food you could get it cheap, but there were upscale Olarian human fusion restaurants, and that's kind of what our restaurant turned into. But the thing is like those ladies made it more normal to come to the restaurant. But then when the news came, and there was different colonies, like there was a German one, a Polish one, a French one, the different news people came and interviewed me about it when he retired, and then I was taking over the restaurant. It was this huge thing because it was like, here the humans of that planet, they looked down upon the Olarians, and this guy took me in, and it was an inspiring story to people that he was willing to take in a human, even though humans were so terrible to his people, and basically changed he gave me his restaurant. He changed my life. You know what I mean? And I would have just been a street kid. I could have died on the streets if it wasn't for him, right? So, and I think it was like a time mission thing, and like one of those like.
This is like Enemy Mine meets Ratatouille.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, but it's real.
It's awesome. It's amazing. It sounds like the stuff that's how cultural, like literally interplanetary relations are formed.
So, I wanna get into the World Economic Forum a little bit more here. I do have one more video that I can show people that I watched. I'm gonna preface. Never watched this channel before. Don't really know if the rest of their content is good, but I did give this video a little watch like a few days ago, and I thought it was good. I thought they presented good information, so I figure why not just play it. And they just kind of explain things really well, so that's why I was just gonna let it play. Let's see how this goes.
And in the comments, Abigail saying the space vending machine would sell them the worms in a can. There were a few kinds, regular, wasabi, and mayo flavor. They were okay. It's kind of like in Asia where you get the wasabi spicy peas. The wasabi.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, we might have to have you on the show sometime if you'd want to be on the show. But anyway.
Meet Klaus Schwab, head of one of the world's most powerful and influential NGOs. How much say does he have over your country? The reality can be a little different. There are a lot of different kinds of groups and organizations that can influence politics, but NGOs, non-governmental organizations, might be the most mysterious. They're not governments, they're not businesses. Some of them are charities, some of them aren't. They can be small little things or massive and widely influential. But in general, NGOs are private organizations that are privately funded and privately run with about as much transparency as a brick. I mean, would you trust this guy? This is Klaus Schwab, head of the World Economic Forum. It's one of the more influential and controversial NGOs. You might know the World Economic Forum as the organization responsible for the annual Davos Agenda Summit in Davos, Switzerland, where thousands of prominent business leaders, politicians, activists, and others meet to discuss how they can shape the future of the world. For example, the initiative they call the Great Reset. Here's a little video about it.
The current global crisis has disrupted every aspect of our lives, but it has also presented us with an extraordinary opportunity, a chance to reset and accelerate efforts to improve the state of our world.
Improve the state of our world? That sounds good to me. But how?
In order to secure our future and to prosper, we need to evolve our economic model, putting people and planet at the heart of global value creation.
Putting people and planet first. Awesome. But what was that about evolving our economic model? Here's how they explain it. You'll own nothing and be happy. So who would own everything in this scenario? Oh, so it'll be owned by Amazon. Got it. Does this mean we're just going to rent everything from Amazon instead of buying everything from Amazon? But the World Economic Forum is so much more than just the Davos Summit or the Great Reset. Mr. Star Wars cosplayer here also talks about how the World Economic Forum works with the best and the brightest to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. I really can't imagine why there are so many conspiracy theories about them. One of the ways the World Economic Forum shapes global agendas is through the Forum of Young Global Leaders. It's an educational organization that has some very notable alumni. I'll tell you who after the break. Welcome back. So one of the World Economic Forum's biggest goals is the Great Reset, a world where we own nothing and are happy. But the World Economic Forum is just an NGO. How
Is that not just like the creepiest name for anything ever? Like the Great Reset. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just so blatantly like out in the open, like up front that they want to. I mean, what do we talk about? These resets, the resets that they always do, the history resets. It's like almost like they're being blatantly out in the open about that's what they want to do. You know what I mean?
Well, they want to co-opt what we all want: the great reawakening, the great remembering, the ascension, and then they're turning it into their thing.
In a way, things do need to reset, but not
in their way. Exactly.
Yeah,
they want the left-hand path. We want the right.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see. But this, like I said, I've watched this before. He makes so many good points. So I'm just going to keep on continuing this video here.
can it guide individual countries to make these radical changes? One of the ways is through the Forum of Young Global Leaders, a sort of internship program to prepare the leaders of tomorrow. It was founded by Klaus Schwab in 2004. According to their website, its goal is to mold young leaders into people who will shape a more inclusive and sustainable future. Each year, a cohort of up-and-coming leaders between 28 and 38 years old are selected to spend 5 years in the program. The program has a large number of noteworthy alumni, including Governor of California Gavin Newsom, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, former U.S. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and author and anti-racism activist Ibram X. Kendi. You've probably heard of them. And the prominent role these alumni play across society illustrates exactly what makes the World Economic Forum so influential. The Forum for Young Global Leaders was a spin-off of an earlier organization called the Global Leaders for Tomorrow that Klaus Schwab started in 1993, and it also had some noteworthy alumni, such as Tony Blair, Bill Gates, and Jeff Bezos.
By the way, that guy that I was talking about earlier that went to the World Economic Forum and said you guys are just making this is all a big jerk off fest so that nobody looks at you and all the problems you cause. He literally flat out said that. He explained how when they changed the name, they're like, oh, we're not doing it anymore. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. Thanks for having me when you did do it. And then they just changed the name and didn't invite him to the next one. So that, I think that's one of the reasons why they rebranded it, is because certain people who were part of it were vocally speaking up against a lot of the things that were messed up about it. So they had to reinvent it and rebrand it again. So anyway, he might even explain that a little bit in this video.
Bezos. With so many high-profile alumni, the World Economic Forum seems to have potentially left its mark on every aspect of modern life, from politics to technology. So what exactly is the World Economic Forum teaching these people? We have no idea. No one seems to know exactly what kinds of things are presented to or discussed by the young global leaders. But one alumnus saw it as a place that did not exactly welcome dissenting voices. Richard Werner, who was part of the cohort of 2000.
Okay, so this is the guy who was in this video. I skimmed through it earlier and I thought it wasn't in this video, but yeah, this might be the guy that I've been talking about.
3 explained the situation.
I and also several others in the cohort, we asked a lot of questions, and they were usually critical questions. That didn't go.
Okay, this is a totally different guy that's saying the same thing, though. Different guy, though, but he's saying the same thing, it looks like.
Down too well, I suspect, and maybe the reason why after the second year, we were told, everyone was told, oh, sorry, this Global Leader for Tomorrow program had to be abolished for, I don't know what reason, sorry. But then a few months later, we noticed that, oh, they have a new program, which they didn't tell us about. It's called Young Global Leader, which is essentially the same. So they just got rid of this cohort by changing the program.
So Werner is essentially saying he believes that he and others in the program got kicked out for asking critical questions. I guess asking too many questions is not part of shaping the future. So what happens when some of the World Economic Forum's leaders of the future become the leaders of today? More after the break. Welcome back. Klaus Schwab is very proud of some of the alumni of his young global leaders. Here he is bragging about just a few of them in 2017.
When I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
Oh wow, Putin, that didn't age well. But the list goes on.
But what we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
Wait, Justin Trudeau was a young global leader, along with half of his cabinet? How much influence does the World Economic Forum have? Well, the list of world leaders goes on. Schwab didn't mention New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, but she was in the program as well. So was French President Emmanuel Macron. That's a lot of world leaders. But let's go back to half of Trudeau's cabinet. Here are some examples. Chrystia Freeland, Canada's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. She's also on the World Economic Forum Board of Trustees, by the way. No conflict of interest there. In addition, there's Scott Bryson, who was President of the Treasury Board of Canada until 2019. And Melanie Joly, the Minister of Canadian Heritage until 2018. So 2 former and 1 current Canadian official. That's not half of Justin Trudeau's cabinet. Could it be this guy is prone to just a little bit of exaggeration? But it's hard to say for sure because the Forum of Young Global Leaders community website doesn't list all alumni, and old cohort rosters are difficult to find. In fact, Schwab might have been exaggerating other claims as well, since we couldn't find Putin or Trudeau listed on any of the cohort rosters either, although we did find this Facebook post where Trudeau mentions the young global leaders. Recently, some Canadians have expressed concern about the World Economic Forum's influence in Canadian politics. But when Member of Parliament Colin Carey asked about the Cabinet's connections to the World Economic Forum, the Parliament Speaker got a little touchy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I listened to my colleague's speech. I had a constituent that wanted me to ask a question about outside interference to our democracy. Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum, and he bragged how his subversive WEF, World Economic Forum, has, quoted, infiltrated governments around the world. He said that his organization had penetrated more than half of Canada's cabinet. And I was wondering, in the interest of transparency, could the member please name which cabinet ministers are on board with the WEF's agenda My concern is the deputy.
Order. I know that the member was in a really good question there, but the audio is really bad and the video is really bad.
The audio is bad.
And I apologize. I don't know if
me no speaky English.
And get this. You get this. It gets worse. Check this out, because I remember watching this.
The member. Okay. Let's try again. The honorable member for Timmins James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, that member was promoting open disinformation. That's not.
So he was able to hear him well enough to know that he was promoting disinformation, but he was not able to hear him well enough to answer his question.
Debate. We have to call it disinformation.
We'll get into debate again.
Strange. I didn't have any trouble hearing the question. And apparently the other member of parliament heard well enough to dismiss it as disinformation. But what has that MP so riled up? Kerry was just doing his job as an elected representative by asking a question posed to him by one of his constituents. You know, the people government officials are supposed to represent? And this is the big question. Who do these leaders represent? If their constituents voted for them to act in a way that didn't fit with the World Economic Forum's vision, who would these leaders choose? Their people or the World Economic Forum? Looking at how Germany, New Zealand, France, and Canada.
Yeah. Can we talk about the militarization of, exactly what we're seeing here is at the end of the day, for these Luciferians to enforce their rule, they have to rely on a military. And then also, I would suspect they use a lot of AI and like robot dogs. Like, what does that look like in the breakaways?
Sorry, what's that?
Like, do they use things like robot dogs and AI and things like that to to enforce their control along with military, like people with guns and well-armed body armor?
Yeah, they use drones and stuff like that too in certain places. That's one thing that I've experienced is combat with machines, where you're fighting machines that don't even have people in them and stuff. Like that's something that I've seen out there. But as far as for Centurion 5 Aurelia, it just had like normal police mostly, like just normal police, and the police were paid fairly well, but also pretty corruptible. You could pay them off to look past certain things and stuff. So, that's how people got away with a lot of crime, is because the police were corrupt. But yeah, it's mostly honestly humans enforcing humans, kind of like it is here on Earth. I mean, and then like another thing too is like, yes, robots exist in the breakaway, but they're expensive. So they usually just use humans. It's cheaper. Like human slaves are cheaper than robot slaves usually. So that's usually what they'll just use humans. So yeah.
Now that, and going back to the Admiral Akbar guy and the so basically that literally changed the culture, not only to a certain extent on that planet for the better, the interspecies relationship, but then other breakaways may also have gotten to learn from that lesson through their news media.
No, I don't think so. The civilian population was not aware of I don't think they were aware of other planets and stuff. I don't recall that. I recall it being like they fed some story about how Earth blew up, and just like all the other planets. Like I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
But didn't you say reporters from the other colonies, like the German?
Yeah, but they was on the same planet.
Oh, okay. Just same planet, but different colonies
different
from
cities. There were like different cities. Like there was a French city, there was a Polish city, I'm pretty sure, German, and then there was like the American English one. And and that's the thing with Joint Navy Space Fleet. Joint Navy Space Fleet is I'm pretty sure it's the North American Trade Organization's space fleet. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And so let's look at the North NATO. Who's it? NATO members. Let's look at the members here real quick. Their members are 12 countries. Oh, now 20 countries. Okay, what countries are they? Oh, it's Albania, Belgium, Bulgaria, Canada, Croatia, Czechia, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Montenegro, Netherlands, North Macedonia. I've never even heard of that country before. Norway, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden, Turkey, Kingdom, United States. This checks out with a lot of what I remember, except Poles. Okay, the Poles are there. That kind of does check out. I remember the Poles. I remember the Germans, and I remember Italians. Yeah, so this checks out. This checks out big time. So I really do think that there's a. Well, I would say I know. I don't think I know that there's a space fleet that is owned by NATO, and it's called the Joint Navy Space Fleet. Yeah.
And so that planet Centurion 5, like what would you say are the main value traits? Like, why is it so valuable to the breakaways and secret space program? Is it mostly military? Is it for
Because
expansion?
where it was located, there's a battle that ended up getting fought at a certain point where we lost because we didn't have enough troops and stuff, and they basically seeded that planet. And then also, my memory's fuzzy, but there's some sort of temporal thing going on. They've portrayed it in some science fiction movies where it's like time on the surface goes by way faster than time outside the planet's orbit. So if they need certain things and they need them fast, they can set things in motion on the surface and get things really fast. So that's one thing. And also, I recall it being like hidden, like it not being on maps. So that was another reason why they chose it. Is it wasn't mapped well. If it was mapped well and more well known, they might not have been able to pull off what they wanted to pull off. And I remember that there was some sort of like natural camouflage that helped with that. But the details are kind of fuzzy on that. And I also want to point out too that I knew, like Ryan Sterling, when he was in the military, he knew that there were other planets and stuff. And it was the same with many people in the military. They knew that what was going on. And it was kind of like here, where there were rumors. Like I remember, literally, I was Marshall Howard, and this is one of the first memories I got back of Centurion, actually. We were working on a road. We were construction workers working on a road. And I remember like telling them about Earth. And they're like, really? Like, I'm like, dude, it's just like here, you guys. Like, it's got the same, everything's the same. The school buses are yellow. The stop sign's red and it's a hexagon and it says stop on it. Like, I was just telling them like how so much stuff is the same, but then they got different music and they got different art and they got different, and I remember like some of the guys were like, this guy's nuts. And then a few of the guys were like, I think he's actually telling the truth. Kind of like here on Earth. This is very similar, where there was conspiracies, there were theories, there were people who knew about the breakaway, but they were sort of looked at as crazy by a lot of people. So it was kind of like that. But the technology, though, was more like the open technology that they had. It was fairly advanced. Like they had, the trains were really nice. They had some pretty good tech. But honestly, looking back, it was kind of like how it is now. There's robots now. I don't think it's that much different than how it is now here. Like, things seem kind of advanced now. Like, I feel like I'm living in the future on Earth right now sometimes.
But it's a lame dystopian future versus our Star Trek future. How much better it could be. Imagine if it wasn't all terrible, harsh military rule, the haves and the have-nots, and living on a lie. Oh, Earth is destroyed. And, you could it would be a much more open society. It would be much more democratic, and people would be, getting to eat proper foods. And then maybe that would probably also help race relations, I would imagine. Because, what were relations like between the Akbar type people, Admiral Akbar, and the humans?
They called them something. They called them a derogatory, racist term all the time. They were very racist towards them. And human beings that hung out with them were also discriminated against. And
like, you're an Admiral Akbar lover.
Yeah, but it was like something way worse than that. And it was, like a lot of the derogatory terms we have for different races and stuff like that here on the earth. It was the same idea, like the N-word and stuff like that. It was the same kind of idea, but speciesist instead of racist. And it took slowly that changed, and it really did start with the poorest of our society, because it's like, we're kind of closer to other, like on the ladder, like the poorest of their society were closer to the Aryans than the people that are at the top. So that's kind of what wedged that opening for camaraderie and cooperation and getting along. And it eventually came to the point where they were just a part, like, it's a lot like, honestly, how we treated black people in the United States, because it was like slowly they just became part of their society and a part of their culture, and they just were considered like equal citizens. But it took a long time. It took a lot
segregation to integration.
It took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, just like it took here with the civil rights movement and everything else. This is kind of the same idea.
Now, when to communicate with the Alarians, is it is like in English and they're speaking vocally, or is it telepathically?
They speak different than we do. They speak in a different language than we do. They did not speak telepathically. They spoke in a different language than us, but they could speak English fairly well. It was pretty hard for an English-speaking person to speak their language, though, because they made some noises they make certain noises that are hard for human beings to make. But they could talk to us pretty well. They sounded, honestly, like Admiral Akbar did a pretty good, but it's way less clear. Like, honestly, like an example that I give, and I know it might sound kind of weird, and it's not the same, but it's it's like way different, but also the closest thing I can think of is like a Jamaican. Like you talk to a Jamaican guy, and even though they're speaking English, you might not understand a word they're fucking saying because they speak it so differently.
It's like a pidgin dialect.
Yeah, but way different. Just because think about the fact that this isn't different humans. That's one thing. We're able to bridge the gap pretty easily on that. They literally are a different species. So their mouths are shaped a little bit differently. They got certain syllables and things like that we don't have and stuff. So yeah, there's a little bit of a. And then I think actually, and I'm just remembering this now, there was a language that was created that was like for communicating between humans and them. Not created, but just kind of naturally formed.
It's a pidgin Alarian English.
Yeah. So like both like a version where it's like a little bit of theirs, a little bit of ours, mixed to where we both could speak it effectively. And but like I said, they were better at speaking our language, and because of the social dynamic, that was what was expected. They were expected to speak our language because they're the lowly Arlarians and we're the great humans. You know what I mean? That's how we looked at it, which was wrong.
Were there any Alarians in their society that got to retain their status, like their local royalty, or were they all, when humans came to their planet, they were all just like struck down?
Just like Native Americans kind of here, except I would say worse even. Because here they know who the chiefs are now and stuff. I think it's actually very comparable. Because I think that a lot of the chiefs, like a lot of the, is kind of like very similar concepts where they had, after their society, like after they got the respect back, some of their tribal elders, society elders, kind of gained more respect in not just their society, but society as a whole. It just took a really long time. But yeah, and then also, from what I recall, and this is all blurry, I'm going to be really honest about that, but like, I think that their future looked pretty decent for a while. Like, it wasn't actually not that bad. But from what I understand, they thinned out the population, and it turned into a luxury, like, getaway planet. And I don't know if they did that by just allowing people to leave, or they thinned out the population, or what. But I remember that before things all ended, it was not. It got better. They progressed, and it wasn't as bad, from what I recall. But obviously, they were just there. The whole planet existed just for that battle. So once that battle happened, from what I recall, they just like thinned out the population. And again, I don't remember every fine detail of it. I'm not saying
it's kind of like turning Hawaii into golf courses.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, it's kind of.
You thinned out the local population one way or another, and now it's a golf course place, resort island instead of
Yeah, and I think that the Valerians live there in the very distant future, and they're pretty happy and they're pretty left alone. But they're the human cities that they're still there. So that's, and it's hard for me to talk about this stuff because I don't want to say anything wrong and the memory's kind of blurry. But that's what I recall. Is like, yeah, like I know for sure that it was all for that battle and it got thinned out, and I remember being there like later on when it wasn't as populated, but also some of the confusion comes in, like there's more than one Centurion. So it took me a while to figure that out, even the fact that there was more than one Centurion. And how I figured that out was John Whitberg talking about how the capital Centurion, the real big deal one, is a Dyson sphere thing, and it's artificial and it's not a planet. And I know the Centurion that I was on was a natural planet, so that couldn't be the same place. And were reptilians covertly in control of the questions? And it's just like here. Yes. Yep. At the higher echelons of the military, the reptiles are in control, just like here. It was the same thing. So I don't know if there's anything else to say, really. I know it's kind of early to end, but
well, maybe this you could leave us with the last recollections of Admiral Akbar. What was it like communicating with him?
Well, his name wasn't Admiral Akbar.
Well, yeah, I know.
It's kind of rude to call him that.
I know. The Admiral Akbar looking guy, the Aurelian who became the father figure. What was that like interacting with him? And then what was that like when he left you the restaurant? Like that must have been pretty wild.
He was really proud of me. I remember his wife was not exactly thrilled about the little arrangement he made with me, but eventually she warmed up to me. And
you helped take care. So you helped take care of her after he was gone.
I don't remember. I'll just be real honest. I don't remember him passing away. I don't remember all that stuff. I do remember when I got my own first apartment and him coming over and seeing it. I remember that. I remember I think he let me sleep in the kitchen floor, but I actually moved into their house for a while when I was younger. So I remember that. Yeah.
Can you describe their house? Like what an Illyrian household is like? That would be amazing.
Well, I think what it was is they kind of live in like almost like hut, like that's what they would live in, is like almost like hut, like teepee things made with like branches and like mud and stuff like that, is what I think they kind of lived in. But these were humanized Illyrians living in the city, so it was just like a normal apartment, dude.
Okay, it wasn't like a Dagobah swamp, like with Yoda.
No, it was just like a normal apartment, like a human or a Illyrian could really live in it. And this was when their business was doing good, so they got a new place with enough room for me because their business was doing better, and that's why I was able to move in. Initially, they didn't really have the room for me, and that's why I slept in the kitchen. But once their business started picking up or whatever, they were able to get an apartment and let me move in with them. And I remember it being an apartment above something, and I don't think it was above the restaurant though. It was above something else, but like some other business or something like that. But yeah, the memories are not 100% clear, but they're also not terrible either. I mean, I remember it pretty well, like fairly well. Like there's just a lot of details that are fuzzy and a lot of stuff that's fuzzy, but yeah, it's I guess it's kind of crazy to think about how. Well, it was a lot like here, except they had the districts and also the travel was way more limited, I guess. And one of the things, too, I want to bring up about that is they had this idea of cultural contamination there, where, like, cultures are best left alone, and when they mingle, it should be, like, limited and monitored, and that's a lot of what the districting was about. And they literally looked at, like, when society was at its worst, because it did improve, but they looked at cultural mingling as like just asking for terrorist attacks, because it's like, oh, the Muslims aren't going to get along with the Christians, and eventually they're going to start bombing each other. That's the way they looked at it. So they literally, that was part of the districting, was keeping this religion over here, this religion over here. That way you guys don't have to fight. You have your little corner. That was part.
And that was just between the humans, or is that also to separate the humans and the Illyrians as well?
Humans and Illyrians, but especially Illyrians. Like Illyrians, from what I recall, they weren't even allowed in the cities initially. And then they're allowed there as servants. They're only allowed there as servants. And
it's like apartheid at that point, not South Africa.
Yeah, it's a lot like that. And I don't know how dude got his own restaurant. I don't know how that all happened, but like, it was just like how it was here, where things just slowly got a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, until eventually they were treated as normal citizens. It just took a long time. Any other races other than the natives? Not that I recall. I don't remember the Illyrians. I think that they're like these like kind of like crocodile creatures that they would hunt and maybe eat sometimes, which is also a thing on Mars, by the way. But yeah, there's a lot of genetic diversity on the planet. It was a tropical planet. There are dinosaurs there. I remember, for instance, a place where you could go to at the edge of the city where there's giant electric fences, and you could literally see dinosaurs. And I remember seeing like T-Rex and stuff, dude. I remember being scary. Like, it scared the hell out of you, because it's like all that's between you is right there. There's just the electric fence, obviously it's safe, super safe, but like it was still scary. I remember it. And like, yeah, and also I remember they had pterodactyls, and they actually had guys that were placed along towers throughout the city that would shoot down the pterodactyls if they came in. Like,
because the pterodactyls would swoop down and like eat your dog or your kid.
Yeah, and then eventually they put up in the future they put an energy net over the city. But like, yeah, I remember like they actually had to take out the pterodactyls. Like, they had to have guys take them out, because yeah, they were kind of dangerous if they tried to come into the city. So they would kind of scare them off. I don't know if they had to always shoot them, but yeah, I remember that was the thing. They had to ward off the pterodactyls. So it's like, yeah, it was a crazy place to live, dude. Like, it was just normal for me, I guess, because I was there. But like, dude, yeah, there were literally dinosaurs there. I also remember, it's kind of funny how this all just turned into a thing about Centurion 5, but that's okay. It has to do with the World Economic Forum. But I remember how we had to cut down. So, for instance, like the city we built, I remember it started with very small, and we worked our way up to a megatropolis. And what they would do is they would literally send us in there with these. We'd be bigger, so we'd be in clone bodies, and we'd be like 3 times our normal size, and we'd have these laser cannons, and we just chop down all the trees and just fucking just get rid of everything. We'd have to kill dinosaurs and stuff like that, but like we just had to clear out the whole area, like just totally fucking annihilate it, so that people could live there. And it was, kind of like, you look back at it and it's like, it was kind of like, this colonization is a scary, scary, fucked up thing. It's kind of like, it was a lot like, what's the movies? The Avatar movies?
Avatar.
Yeah, it's a lot like that. They kind of, that's what it's like. And that's how they treat it, man. It's all just dollar signs, just money, just all they care about is making fucking money. They don't give a shit about, like, the people there or the people who are part of the operation or anything or anyone.
Like the Illyrians, I mean, it's their planet. They probably have some amazing, ancient, rich, wealthy culture, and it's just like they're just being treated like savages to be clear cut.
Yeah, no, and the thing is too is we had to go. They ended up having their own culture and advanced technology and stuff like that, and we had to go back in time to when they're primitive in order to thin them out, because if in the future they're actually able to fight us. So our cowardice fucking asses had to cheat and go back in time to when they just had like sticks and stones and shit to even colonize their planet. That's what we did, and that's why our whole mentality of them being like lesser and like caveman. That's where that came from, was because, well, they sort of kind of were, because we showed up really early in their evolutionary shit. They hadn't figured everything out yet. You know what I mean? But they're really just up to, like, IQ wise, like, they're pretty much just up to par with us, from what I recall, they were just as smart as we were. Just their culture was different. They looked at the world a different way. Like you know what I mean? Like they don't pay taxes and drive in a fucking automobile, so you think that they're more primitive than you. It's such a silly human way to look at things. You know what I mean? Like they lived in symbiosis with the earth. They had it made. We're the ones who came along and fucked everything up. You know what I mean?
And you call them Aurelians, and then in Star Wars they're called Corellians, I think.
Really?
Yeah, and
I didn't
because
know
they
what they're
call it like a
called.
Corellian Corvette, because they're in the Star Wars lore, their planet is known for being really good at making starships.
Okay.
And so it's interesting. It's like maybe if the space programs hadn't used time travel to nerf them, maybe they'd be.
I talked about how interstellar travel was, but they slowly got more advanced, and then everyone left, or they thinned out the population. I don't know how. Did they kill everybody, or did they just say, "Hey, you can leave now. Space is out there"? I don't know what they did, but that could have been it. It could have been like, "Hey, so you can just go wherever you want now," and maybe the Aurelians did build it, and maybe that is where that Star Trek or Star Wars thing comes from, is art imitating life, like it so often does. Maybe that is what is going on, or maybe it's just a coincidence. Who knows?
Who knows? We want to thank everyone for being here. We said Matthew Mordian in the house. And Kira's been making a lot of comments on with Avina Sativa, and of course Abigail D.
Darth Foreskin. Look, hey, Klaus is a Darth. We gotta. That had to get on the screen. Sorry, that's a good.
Yeah, yeah, that's worthy. So if anyone has any questions or comments or hysterical outbursts, here's your chance to pick our brains.
Yeah. Historical outbursts are welcome.
No. And you know, I admit I have a lot of fascination with Centurion 5 or Aurelia, and it really I do feel it's the interplanetization of the Luciferian playbook. Basically take whoever the natives are and stomp them down, and then be elites to rule over them.
I almost wonder, like, you know, some people, you know, they say everything happens for a reason. Like, maybe the reason. So how I remember this all, I feel like this is very important to bring up. I don't always remember stuff. I forget more than I remember. They take me a lot. And how I remember this all was I ripped off this necklace. I woke up, I was drugged. There were people all around me, like slumped on the floor and like lying there. I knew what time it was. I knew I got taken. I knew they were going to wipe my memory and make me forget it. So I ripped my necklace off. And sure enough, I woke up the next day, my necklace was ripped off, which confirmed that that was not a dream. You actually remembered that, buddy. That was a real event. If you dream something, your objects on your body don't break in fucking real life. You know what I mean? Like, that is one of the moments where I was just like, fuck anybody who tells me this shit isn't real. That was one of the moments where I was just like, it really opened the floodgates for me. And what was I forgot the point I was trying to make. Why was it?
So you said it was a memory that came back for you?
Oh, what if the whole point of this, for me to remember this, is to be able to warn people about the World Economic Forum? Like, what if it's like, you know, like everything's meant to happen, like God's helping me out or whatever? I don't fucking know. Like, because it's seriously like, that's the thing that it took me a while to realize it. Like, I didn't wake up and go, oh, the World Economic Forum has already happened on another planet. No, it was like 2 years later of me, after I watched enough and saw, I was like, wait, they're trying to make people eat crickets. Wait, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, they did all this shit already. It's like I saw the whole playbook get played out on another planet. So yeah, I feel like, and like I said, they're so good at like, and it's the thing I hate the most about these fuckers is they're so good at like, duh, let's care about the environment. Like, we should care about the environment. We're treating the environment like shit right now. Let's care about the environment more. Obviously. And they take that great thought, and they're like, okay, and how we do that?
They invert it.
We feed everybody fucking crickets and trap them in prison cities. That's how we do it.
They invert it.
I mean? Yeah, and it's like, even like, you know, the idea like now people are afraid of like making cities walkable. Like, you know, Edwards talked all about how great walkable cities are and how people shouldn't be afraid of it. People kind of have a right to be because of these weird World Economic Forum ideas that they have, and it's just like, it's just so fucking crazy how good they are. Forgive all the swearing, I'm like that sometimes, but it's just bananas to me how good they are at taking like great ideas, good intentions, good feelings, like basically human empathy, right? Like one of our best traits, and then they weaponize it against us. Like we saw that with like the event that shall not be named. Like they tried to make people feel like guilty and like have like they weaponize people's empathy. Basically, is what they did with that.
And they get us to virtue signal.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and at first, that's where it was for me. At first, I was like, hey, I have empathy, so I'm gonna go along with this program. But eventually, I was like, it took a while. I've been upfront about this. Like, I went along with the program way too long. I had a bad feeling. I should have known. But I remember just being like, there's a lot of virtual signaling going on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the people were like, I know there are people who wear masks out there because they are maybe immunocompromised, they're afraid, whatever. And I'm not talking about those people right now. I know there are people that do it. They're literally just virtue signaling. They'd wear it if, you know what I mean? Like I can just tell, like some people. It's not everybody, but I just could see that kind of part of it. And
the Wachiko.
And
the
just,
wokeness.
And also just the hey, this is how, like, they give us like facts. They'd be like, this is the facts. If you question this or if you see anyone question this, here's a baseball bat. Make sure to beat the fuck out of him. If you see anyone like, I'm exaggerating, but
well, it's like in the clip you played.
And then like 3 months later, or sometimes less time, they're like, yeah, by the way, all that thing that these people were saying, that's actually true. And they would never mention the fact that people had already been saying it. Like, and I saw it happen over and over again. And once that happened enough times, I was like, I just can't go along with this anymore. They just keep on changing their story.
The gaslighting.
This is a constant. It's like a relationship with an abuser. Like, you're supposed to just blindly believe them, even though they lie to you over and over again.
A narcissist abuser.
Yeah.
Now, Derek asked, Brian, what are your thoughts on a plasma sea outside of Earth's atmosphere and submarine-type UFOs are created to travel through? So the Germans, the bad Germans during World War II, some of their first vehicles that they sent into space were basically submarines that they converted to be spacecraft. But that, for me, that's not to say that it's like a watery up there in space. My understanding is it's not a perfect vacuum, and it's not exactly like the way it's depicted, but it's not exactly like you're swimming through anything either.
Yeah, and the reason why they're able to do that is because not because it's watery up there, it's because it's airtight. It you know, you got oxygen supply in there. Like they're just able to retrofit it and change.
Yeah, it's an easy retrofit to submarines.
Yeah, you put
into spaceships.
just like Zeppelins, for instance. Zeppelins are common, and you can power them with pretty primitive with like gases and stuff like that to make them float around. But you can also use an anti-grav, and then all that space that was for helium and just empty air, you can put rooms in there and have it be for people because it's got this tiny little anti-grav engine in it. So it's like, you know, you can take these same concepts and kind of evolve them over time. Is kind of usually what happens. You know what I mean?
Actually, we don't, but it's awesome to hear it from you.
Okay. Well, we've seen it.
I'd love to see a Vimana flying machine with anti-gravity like that. I could just like strap to my, you know, whatever, my motorhome or whatever, and fly around.
UFOs would explain cigar shape people see. That's true.
Yeah, the nautical, and that's and also that cigar shape. It's just I guess it's a really good transport shape. It's a bus. It's basically a long school bus.
Yeah. So I guess we're gonna wrap things up. There's really not much to say. Pine Gap is really important. We'll have the whole show on Pine Gap, which, by the way, that's where Edward served in the alternate reality. But which hopefully I can get him back. I think he might be occupying another body again. But we're gonna wrap up the show. We're closing up. I just want to say thank you to everybody here in the comments. We had some donations. That's always wonderful. We really appreciate it.
Come to our conference in July.
Come to our conference in July. I've been bringing it up.
People are buying tickets. I'm very gratified to see that already. So people are excited and they're already looking forward to it. And we'll also be adding tickets later on for the special event dinners, as well as the Super Soldier early bird tickets, the couples tickets. And then also we'll you have a conference rate discount to stay at the Serrata Beach Resort, just call into their front desk, let them know you're with a conference, and they'll apply the conference discount.
So yeah, and then I also want people to know I've gotten a couple of these finally, snail's pace, but I'm just trying to talk to people, and money compensation is good, but that's not what it's about. I'm trying to connect with my brothers in the secret space program. A lot of people are trying to understand this, where maybe a Facebook chat with me, it probably isn't going to do it. You might need a face-to-face conversation with someone like me. Like for me, it was Joseph Powell. It was Penny Bradley. These people were there for me and helped me figure shit out. You kind of need that. You kind of need to talk to somebody who's been through it. So I want to be that person for other people. Like I said, if you can pay me, that's great, because but it's not what it's about. I just want people to, so don't be afraid to schedule time with me because you're broke. Like I don't want
and we encourage everybody. I mean, like people like Arkeem and others in our community. Some people are like they're literally military secret space program grade remote viewers, and you can hire them for consults. It's wild. It blows my mind.
And I can only imagine that I'm only going to get more and more popular. And when my files come out, I'm gonna have to fucking hide, because I'm gonna just have so many people trying to talk to me. So this is a limited offer, you guys. Like, it's not gonna be forever where you're gonna be able to just email Arkeem Ra and just talk to me, and you can give me fucking $10 and I'll be fine with that. Like, this is a short window of opportunity you people have. I've seen the future. The files do come out. Like, it gets crazy. Like, I'm not going to be able to just talk to people all day on the internet. Like, my life gets way too busy for that. I literally have to hand over the channel to other people someday. Best case scenario, and we're headed towards that, is what I think. So I also want to remind people, though, this is like YouTube's great. Like, as far as like you can give you little super chats and everything else, but Patreon is really the bread and butter of content creators these days. And my Patreon is only $5. You can give 10, 20 if you want. It's got some special content over there, like my music and stuff, but it's really just a way to say thank you and support the channel. The channel's always going to be free over here on YouTube. Sometimes we have some early premieres and stuff over there, but we do our best to keep everything free. And your donations to the Patreon help that. So we really appreciate that. And with that being said, it was good talking with you, Brian. It was an excellent show. Thank you for being such a great co-host, and thank you everybody for being here. I'm gonna end it with this video, thanking all of my patrons and stuff, and just you guys rock. See you guys later.